What is happening, y'all? Cowboy here, and welcome to my ultimate greatsword guide. Now, greatsword is probably the most iconic weapon of Monster Hunter, just a giant big sword cutting through big monsters. It's hard to not go wrong with it. And while in the past I think it was probably one of the more challenging weapons to master because it requires a lot of knowledge about, proper monster timing, knowing exactly when to attack, positioning and whatnot. Things have definitely gotten a lot easier with wilds, especially with focus mode. With focus mode, we can just be like, oh look, the monster's behind me now, and just we're turning. Like even the TCS, I can do a crazy amount of turning. That's like a 180-degree turn after letting that move out. So some major quality of life improvements, including our block, including the offset, and we're going to go into all of those. But obviously there's going to be spoilers, as with all the other guides. We're going to be doing the breakdown of the weapon. Then we're going to be taking a look at suggested greatswords, suggested armor pieces, and then from there we'll be going out on a hunt. So hopping over into weapon controls, there's not all that much to be concerned with when it comes to greatsword. At its core, this is a very simple weapon. The main thing is you press and you hold Y to get off a charge slash, and you press B to tackle. As long as you can do that, you're golden. That is the core of the weapon. Offset, which is something that's new, we'll talk about that. It's a very powerful counterattack. We also have perfect guard now, which is actually pretty solid with greatsword. And then we even have a couple combos listed here, but the only thing you really need to worry about is the TCS, the true charge slash combo. Now, one of the biggest changes with this weapon compared to what we had in World as well as Rise is the TCS has been normalized. And what I'm talking about is in the previous games, we saw people do this a lot. They would get a shoulder tackle, and then let the TCS rip. And that was a 734 hitting a weak spot. So not too bad. But when I say normalized, I mean that in before where the damage was kind of like 10%, 20%, 30%, now it's a lot closer to say 25, 35, 40 or something along those lines. So going through a full combo now, see 487 on the first hit that's charged, 536 on that hit. And then, of course, 918, but that was a crit on a wound. It's usually not that high. It's usually closer to about 700. So, 400 and change, 500 and change, 700 and change. That's what I mean when I say things have been normalized. Now, while the TCS is still going to be very good, the important thing to keep in mind is we just want to work in more of that combo instead of just kind of tackling our way up to it. Now, in general, I'll usually, especially if I'm like dodging something, I'm usually going to go in, I'll get the first attack, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a strong charged and then a max on the TCS. It's very rare that I'm going to commit to getting all three of those attacks charged. And another thing around that also involves how perfect guarding works. So offensive guard is actually fantastic on greatsword now, but if I put on this thing and get it to smash, you'll see the timing to get all three charged is very, very tight. So let this come down. Come on. So I'm going to try and get through the full combo. If you look at the right side of the screen, see 839, and I'm just barely eking that out as offensive guard falls off. Now instead, if I just go boom, I hit the first, get the second, you can see we have a little bit more of a window. So just something to keep in mind. More than likely, if you're good with your timing, you can get all three of those out. That is a much longer commitment. But if you decide to just go for the strong and the true, you'll definitely get those out during your offensive guard window, and it's a little bit faster. Besides that, talking about our offset attack, probably one of the stronger offset attacks in the game because we have the ability to charge it up and hold it. Out of that, we do a follow-up cross slash, which will then put us directly into the strong charged, and we can go to a TCS from there. Now, in terms of doing the offset, we can do it initially. Basically, anytime we haven't just done an offset, we can do it. So to explain, I could go like rising, that could be an offset, into a normal, into an offset. Or instead, I could be like, I'm doing strong charged, now I'm going to go into an offset. So, but the point is, you can't do offset into offset. There has to be a normal wide charge between offsets. So just in terms of trying to time it and work it on into your combos. Besides that, talking about perfect guard, if we just block we don't have any immediate follow-up. When we get a perfect guard off, the immediate follow-up is the fact that we can go straight into our charge slash, whereas typically we will be knocked back. And big shout over to Rage Gaming, actually being the one that pointed that out to me. We were talking in the Discord, and I'm like, where's my cool follow-up? I don't have a cool follow-up. And I hadn't actually tried just doing a normal block. And he was like, oh, yeah, the follow-up is we get to attack. And I'm like, oh, wow. Interesting change. But that's going to be the core of the weapon. Anytime we pop a wound, you can also kind of direct where it's going to go. And that is also going to transition us into another TCS. So wounds are pretty valuable because they're going to allow you to follow up with that TCS on the target. Besides that, like I said, going for the perfect guard, going for the offset, all great ways to propel your combo along. And that's kind of be the core of the weapon. There are a couple other things we can do, like we can do a tackle into a side blow, and that's going to cause some KO damage. We can do things like the wide slash, or it's like wide slash into tackle into let me see, wide slash into tackle into leaping wide slash. But to be honest, most of the time you're not going to really be utilizing that stuff. I think the hardest part of adjusting to this weapon, for me at least, is with the inclusion of offset. It's making sure that you are regularly working that in to your play, because it's just pure value. Like, there's no reason to not utilize offset, and especially if you played the weapon back in Iceborne, back in Rise and Sunbreak. It's, you know, it's something new that works incredibly well with our rotation that we need to get used to. And the perfect guard. You know, previously greatsword blocks were not a thing, but being able to just boom and get that perfect guard out, that is very, very powerful, because for those that don't know, offensive guard is a 15% boost to our raw, which is crazy. So with all that being said, let's take a look. We'll hop on over and we will take a look at the weapons. So making our way on over to Gemma. Actually, take this damn thing off. We should just put that on an OBS source, right? But anyway, talking to Gemma, one of the best great swords early on, in my opinion, is actually a very, very simple one. It's going to be the Chematrice. Now, the Chematrice is going to come in at 100 raw, making it comparable to pretty much everything else in this initial tier. But as soon as we get it up to rarity 3, we are looking at 140, 5%, and 180. And just comparing that against some of the alternatives, 130, no affinity. This one's 120, does have paralyze, which is pretty attractive. Nursilla is 120 and has sleep. On the note of Sleep Greatsword, I was a big fan of Sleep Greatsword. The idea of putting a monster to sleep for a fat, juicy wake up always appealed to me. It's still good, but given that our TCS isn't as potent as it used to be, it's not as like this, you know, oh, sword TCS wake up is you know, the god of damage. It's not still that. It is still respectable though. Looking at some others, you know, Doshuguma, we can get that at rarity 2 at 140. So you could get Doshuguma until you can get the Chematrice Espada 2. But the Chematrice, I mean, it's simple, but it gets the job done, you know. It handles it. Guardian Doshuguma, another one that is very, very potent when we unlock it, going up to 180 in exchange for the -20. And then comparatively, you can see Arkfeld, a little less raw, a little less negative affinity, but comparable sharpness. Regular Doshuguma also going up to 180, but taking the -20. But we're getting punishing draw, so whether you want focus or punishing draw, it's going to be up to you. Now, once we get into the end game, I think Ardian is going to be the clear choice if you can get proper rolls. Right now, the Baronzia is my Ardian. We're at 220 white, 15 affinity, 250 paralysis. And that is very, very potent. Comparing that to a couple different choices, you know, comparing it to, let me get down to our, where's our Fireboy that we were working with for so long? Hang on. How did I lose track of it? There we go, Chematrice. Comparing it to the Chematrice, we can see that the Chematrice is going to have 20 more raw, but unfortunately it comes in with blue sharpness, which is going to put it behind on EFR. Some alternative choices here as we go down the tree. You know, Doshuguma also 240, but barely blue sharpness and -10. 240 blue, -10. 200 with just a flat sliver of, or excuse me, 220 with a little bit of white. And this is pretty comparable. It does have focus, but we got 15 affinity over what this one is offering, you know. Guardian Doshuguma, 250 -20 in blue. It's just a lot of them don't really stack up. I do like Poison King coming in at 230 with 0 affinity in blue. That's not too bad. And then Rathian weapons are usually pretty respectable. This is actually pretty close to what I have. It has more sharpness. It has more poison. It's comparable affinity, but it does have a little bit less attack. The Gore Magala is actually a pretty solid choice with the amount of white sharpness it has and the 20% affinity. Obviously, Greatsword isn't really used for element, but I'll be honest, this is just one of the coolest Greatsword designs in the game. Absolutely love it. But the point being that if you can get a good Ardian, that is going to carry you. Now, given this is roughly a Gob roll, I should have made this a triple attack. I went attack, attack, affinity, and then I somehow managed to roll 4 attack boosts on it, which is what makes this so good. But in terms of the potential as a Paralysis Greatsword, which I'm a really big fan of Paralysis Greatsword, it really does work. Looking at the comparable Paralysis Greatsword here, it does have way more paralysis, but we have 20 less raw, we have worse sharpness, and we don't have any affinity, and we have speed sharpening. So if you were trying to go for a greatsword that's either paralysis or blast, you're going to be better off going for Ardian, but there are a couple of decent choices in the greatsword tree. Now moving on over to the armor, very similar to Sword and Shield, there's not really a whole lot going on for us when it comes to greatsword and armor, because a lot of the core skills that we look for, things like offensive guard, things like focus, all of these are now weapon skills. So armor, you have a little bit of freedom. Max might is a pretty decent skill if you're not doing too many shoulder tackles, because that will drop your max might. But if you're doing a lot of perfect blocking, max might is just going to be free crit. So you could consider that. But once we get a little bit farther, you definitely have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you want to do your set. I'm a big fan of the Guardian Arkfeld gear here. I'm a big fan of the Resentment setup, because obviously we're looking to throw out offsets. We're also looking to shoulder check monsters and occasionally go for perfect guards, and if we whiff that, it's a regular guard. So the Resentment Counter-Strike set works well because, you know, you're trying to shrug off and take a few hits with Greatsword. So I'm going to be covering the 2 of those, but when it comes down to armor, you have a lot of flexibility in terms of what you want to run. You know, early on, there's nothing that's really crazy to me that stands out, but early on, if you're looking for deco slots, at least, the Wrath gear is a pretty solid choice. You know, we get stuff like Evade Window 221, which is actually what I'm using with this build. Once we get into Guardian Wrathlos, you could pick up some Weakness Exploit early on, but you're probably going to crush through early high rank anyway. So looking at these sets in particular, this is the first set that I like to run with Greatsword. We are going for 4-piece Guardian Arkfeld. That is going to pick us up the Decimator 2 perk, which is really nice, especially when combined with Recovery Up. We're going Wrathlos Greaves, mainly for the fact that they have a 2-2-1 deco configuration and then Exploiter Charm. And those are the current decos that we're running, and this basically comes out to Wex 5, Flare 5, Max Might 5, Divine Blessing, Recovery Up, Evade Window. This I actually need to change. You were supposed to be Crit Boost. And I've gone back and forth. I do like Charge. Charge is pretty cool on that because it helps to get paralysis out, but with as much crit as we have, I mean, I got to be running a critical jewel. So that is the base Greatsword set. Now instead, if you want to run the Resentment type armor, that is pretty close to what we have here. One of the big things I would like to point out is that this current set has the Chain Charm and it runs Burst. I personally would not recommend Burst with Greatsword. You can maintain it. It is significantly more difficult compared to other weapons. So if you were going to run something like this, I would probably drop the Udra Greaves and work in a different piece. And, you know, ideally, I try and get more Wex into the build. Either more Wex or more Flare. But, you know, there's a couple different ways we could do this. If we wanted to, you know, we could take this. We could go to, instead of maxing Flare, let's go Wex there. And then over here, we could go, let's see. It's going to be a Wex, and Wex, antivirus, flinch free. I don't need the point of burst. I'll probably go for something like that. Put in a Wex gem, and then I could also put in a Wex gem there, and that would put me up to Wex 4. So there's a couple different things you can do. I mean, the big parts are the Udra, the head, and the chest. You have those. The chest coming in with Resentment 3-1-1, and then the head coming with Resentment and Counter-Strike, and then you can slot 2 counters and get that maxed out. But it's really just going to come down to preference. Honestly, the more I hunt, and especially given the level of difficulty or lack thereof of endgame monsters, I really think just going for the comfy set is nice, because, you know, most of our hunts so far are still sub 10 minutes. Nothing's really that stressful, and so this is more than sufficient to get the job done. But either way, let's head out on a hunt. We're going to just see if the guy I want to fight is up, and he's not, so I'm going to do a little bit of resting. Just to show this, I've covered this in a different guide, but good info for those that don't know. I wanted to fight a new Udra, so we're just going to change this to inclemency. And since inclemency is when the apexes come out, this is going to guarantee an Udra spawn. So nice little tip if you're trying to get Ray Dow or Uthduna or any of that stuff. Look, there he is. This region's apex predator has appeared. I mean, what could be better for a greatsword hunt than a giant octopus with a bunch of tentacles I can slice off, right? Get a chill mantle bug. Put on our corrupted mantle and then jump, charge, and let it rip. No! We got on the wrong target. Let's try that again. I don't have any healing. That might be a little sketchy. Oh man, look at him go. What are y'all doing? Oh no, he's cooking him. Okay, I know he's leaving. Bro, come on, you're wasting my hunt time right now. Now, I want you to look at my health. That is from me putting on my corrupted mantle. And you're probably like, bro, you're losing a lot of health. You're gonna die before the fight even starts, but trust. Actually, I might. I didn't get my mount. Get me, Azure. Because we have that recovery up 3 and player 3, or decimator 2, I should say. Let's wait till you see what my health is coming out of this. Look at that. Full health, baby. Let's go. Oh, nope, that's not. I read the wrong attack there. I was like, oh, here he comes. He's going to slam me, isn't he? Nope, he was not slamming. He was doing something different. And you can just see just how much the healing that I'm getting out of popping these wounds are. It's absolutely insane. Would you stop with these little pop shots? Anytime I miss that, I'm typically going to go for a roll out of it. Come here. Come, stop that. We were almost up to a TCS, but you'll notice there that doing that reset us back. That's one cut. Oh no. Like he might be a bit too far. Oh, oh, we barely got it. Give me the weak spot. Give me the weak spot. I think I only got one tentacle cut so far. Yeah. Oh, what are you doing? Actually, hang on. My sharpness is getting a lot lower than I'm comfortable with. Weak spot I'm not seeing over here. Hang on. Sometimes it's really hard to actually just see weak spots on this guy.
Looks like it's moving to a new area.
Oh, I was running. Maybe I'll take both of his front arms. I really want to get an offset, but I struggle on his faster attacks. I was trying to, I wanted to get it when he does his big rear up attack where he slams down on you. But I went for the perfect block instead. And honestly, that's the hardest part of adjusting to Greatsword for me in Wilds is, you know, you have these new moves and they can really contribute to the playstyle of the weapon now, but it just takes a lot of practice to get used to using them. Oh, bro, I don't know where my thing was taking me, but that is not where my dude is at all. What are you near? You even near a camp at all? I don't know what it was doing. Why the hell was it bringing me down here? Why did it bring me past you? This just gives me a chance to eat since my food buff presumably wore out. Yeah, it did. Slippery little octopus. Come on, get up it.
Look at all our ingredients. We should whip out the barbecue grill.
I'm gonna miss my sub 10 from chasing him around. Unacceptable.
Please don't. Almost there.
Where you? What the hell? Oh shit! Oh, I put down I was like, what is happening right now? There we go. Get down. After the chase we just did, I wasn't dealing with his ass running across the map again. Oh, we did get two. Hell yeah! Got the front right arm and the front left arm, and we'll carve up these little guys. I can always use some raw meat. So a little disappointing I didn't get an offset. What was weird is I went for like a last ditch offset at the very end there, and I think that's when I cut off his arm instead. So like, I can't be that upset with that. And we did get some juicy rewards out of it. Let's take a look. What have you got for me? Stream Iron Wall, Bandolier, Finder, Blast, Sleep, Venom, Enhancer Stream. Enhancer Stream is useful. Bandolier, Iron Wall. That could actually be pretty useful for heavy bowgun. So all in all, not a bad hunt, coming in at 845. But either way, that is going to wrap things up for Greatsword. Like I said, still a lot of fun to play. If you played it previously, though, it is going to take some practice kind of working those new aspects into your rotation. But either way, we're going to close things out here, and up next, I think we're probably going to do Hammer. So I'll catch y'all then.